Not all at once, guys. I understand. I just talked to y'all, so I get it.
Talked with Graham like weeks ago.
Exactly.
Coach, you had the most of your newcomers for bowl practice, but I know bowl practice is a little different because you're preparing for an opponent. This is more about individuals and them. What is your early evaluation of those newcomers when it's been about themselves the last 2 days?
Yeah, just their retention. You know, a lot of times when freshmen come in, one of the hardest things for those guys to make in terms of adjustments is just the mental capacity and what it takes. You know, obviously, you know, our playbook is a lot more advanced than some of the high schools that they came from. So those guys' ability to grasp what we're trying to get accomplished, you know, from an X's and O perspective, and then just their, you know, sheer tenacity. You know, a lot of those guys, you know, come from high-level programs, and you can tell just the way they carry themselves and how hard they're working to this point. So we're extremely pleased with them. You know, we think most of those guys have a chance to be special as they continue to grow within the program.
I know some freshmen can be ready to play early on. Others are sort of projections down the road. How do you distinguish between the two when you look at a guy, evaluate whether he's a guy that can play early or it's going to need a little while?
Well, again, like I tell all the guys during the recruiting process, you know, we don't decide who start. They do. You know, so it's just really based on their body of work and the consistency in which they do it, you know, because you can have some good days, you know, and obviously there are going to be some bad days, but just how many days can they string together that are obviously positive? You know, are they continuing to get better? Are they continuing to work? Those are the characteristics that will decide, you know, how much playing time a guy gets. And that's not necessarily just for the freshmen, but that's for the sophomores or juniors or, you know, even some of the guys who, you know, had a big role last year and is hoping to get a bigger role. So, you know, everything is based on consistency, you know, and like we always say, which I've said since I got here, you know, you get what you earn. You know, if those guys are doing the right things, you know, and doing it at a consistent manner, then those guys got an opportunity to contribute.
You got the two kids from BYU. What have you seen thus far out of Gabe and Keenan, and what do you like about their mental makeup and what they bring to the D?
Yeah, but both those guys have been awesome. You know, they're obviously both experienced guys. You know, Gabe, you know, from the back end perspective, he's very calm. You know, he has a great demeanor about him, extremely smart. So far, you know, he's been everything that we want him to be. As far as KP goes, you know, I actually love this kid. You know, he's just a guy that's, you know, great to be around, just the way he carries himself, just as a young man. But then obviously when you get him on the field, you know, you understand why he's played so many games. So we're excited about both guys. You know, we think they both have, you know, an opportunity to contribute to our program. And obviously if they continue to grow, you know, their roles will be determined.
Coach, with the freshmen, do you try to kind of spoon feed them, or do you throw everything at them and see what they can absorb?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the way we're built right now, you know, going into year 3, you know, those guys don't really have the luxury of just, you know, being spoon fed. You know, they're learning at the same pace that the veterans are learning. So, yeah, in some ways that can be tough on freshmen, but I think in the long term, you know, it's going to speed it up and give those guys an opportunity to be able to contribute this year. So, no, we're not slowing down at all. You know, we're throwing a lot at them, and, you know, the more they can retain, the more we'll continue to throw at them. But, you know, it's only been obviously 2 days, but, you know, so far they seem to have a pretty good grasp on what we're trying to get accomplished.
You got an influx of new guys, obviously, in the secondary. How much do you cross-train with those guys? We saw Christian Charles looks like he's working at safety. How much do you move around those guys in spring, or is it one of those, to kind of piggyback what Jimmy said, you want them to learn one spot before you start moving them into cross-training world?
Yeah, it's not really a one-size-fit-all, you know, answer. You know, I think it's a lot based on the kid and, you know, what he's done. You know, you use Christian Charles as an example. You know, when we first got here, Christian actually played safety for us. So, you know, him having an ability to play boundary safety, field safety, obviously with the experience that he gathered, you know, last year playing corner, we feel like we can move him around to a lot of different spots to give him a great opportunity, you know, to continue to carve out a role for himself. As it relates to the freshmen, you know, we try to be a little bit more deliberate with our approach with those guys, you know, giving them an opportunity to learn one of the positions, you know, and once they show that they can obviously master that spot, then we start to move those guys around a little bit. So the playbook is going to be thick enough, you know, that we really want them to focus on one specific position, and then obviously once they gather that, we'll obviously move them around, you know, accordingly.
Austin, Adam, and Casey.
We were out there obviously for the first few periods today. Arion had an interception out there. What did you like about his mental makeup and athleticism, that combination? And do you feel like he's someone who this spring could really elevate him into being a guy that can hit fall camp running?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously anytime you get a chance to invest, and he has 15 opportunities to do that, just like all those guys. But I would tell you about him as a person, just once again, just a high character kid, has a lot of, pride in what he does. He's extremely bright, and like you said, the athleticism you can't hide. So, I was really pleased with the instincts that he showed today in coverage. I think a lot of times, for linebackers, typically when they come out of high school, they're guys that just come off the edges, or guys that are just thumpers inside. But for you guys that seen him play in high school, tremendous running back, obviously blossomed as a linebacker. So he's got really good instincts, and like I said, I was pleased with what he showed in coverage today. So he's definitely trending in the right direction.
I've heard you talk a lot about your philosophy in coaching, adapting, stopping the run first, this sort of thing. I don't know if I've ever asked you about your philosophy in recruiting. Is there one specific trait or a certain number of traits you're looking for in recruiting?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is by position, specific sometimes, but I think overall makeup, you obviously want guys that are tough, guys that are athletic, and when I say tough, it's not just physically, but mentally, how much of a competitor are they? I personally like, guys that play multiple sports, guys that love to compete. Those things are, to me, sometimes it seems to be a dying art. But anytime you can have a guy that maybe runs track, wrestles, basketball, things of that nature, they're just used to competing no matter what the arena is. So to me, that competition piece and being able to compete is a big one. But obviously, size, toughness, and athleticism is, things that we cherish as well.
How are you hoping to use these spring practices to really shape the identity that you want this defense to be?
Yeah, we're investing and we're building. We try to, talk daily about, the choices that we make, putting us in a position to have the outcome that we desire. So, it's a long spring. We obviously got 2 days in, but so far those guys are really working their tails off to, because they understand what's at stake. Sometimes when you think about 15 opportunities, like, well, I got time to get better. We don't see it that way. We're in a fight, in a race to try to be as good as we can be, as fast as we can be it. And, our kids, particularly the guys that have been here, obviously understand that mantra. So, it's just one of those days. We're trying to be 1-0 every day, and I think our kids understand that, and that's how we're working.
Coach, looking at a guy like Jordan Matthews, that cornerback position, how tough is it to come in and learn as a freshman? What are some of the biggest challenges for those guys coming up to this level, and how has he kind of handled that going back to bowl practices or this offseason so far?
Yeah, like I said earlier, all those guys are really doing a great job, and just, with their preparation and understanding what to do. But obviously you step up in class, when you come to the collegiate level, and, you're not the fastest guy. Like a lot of these guys were on their respective teams, and Jordan's no different. But the thing that I love about him, he's a super competitor, like a lot of those guys. He's got good size. He obviously can run. So he's a guy that we're not concerned about in terms of the stage being too big. It's just working on his craft daily, which he's doing. So we think he has a chance to be a special player here, along with some of the other guys.
Coach, I know the only stat that matters is winning, but do you
Nope,
look
ain't
at...
no but. That's it. Nah, go ahead.
Do you look at rushing yards per game, passing yards per game, third down defense? Do you look at that and say, hey, we got to get better in these areas?
Yeah, you always try to look at, ways that you need to improve. But ultimately, like I tell guys all the time, you play, we obviously have a style in play that we want to play with that we think gives us the best opportunity to be successful. What are we trying to take away? I think someone asked me earlier. Yeah, we want to stop the run. Now, what does that look like? Those are high percentage throws, too, on early downs. We count that in the run game. But to me, you want to be able to, take away the explosive plays. To me, that's a critical factor in success. Obviously, anytime you can make a team one-dimensional, it puts you in a win situation as well. But the third thing, to be quite honest with you, is what you said earlier. Are you getting off the field? I think we're top 25 in the country, in stop rate. Obviously, if you're just talking statistically, people will say, well, you weren't quite good in the passing game. Well, no, we weren't, but we were good where it needed to be, and that's getting our tails off the field. And that's the bottom line of football. Don't let them score. Get off the field. Give the offense a chance to be good. And like I said, we're top 25 in doing that. Our goal is obviously to be number one, but our real goal is to win. So whatever that takes is what we're going to do.
What are some of the things that you want your freshmen to learn from the older guys on the defense, things that could really benefit them as they develop this spring?
Yeah, I think it's, that's a big question, because it's a lot of things, but it's related to football, just again, how we go about our business, being able to manage, the highs, and obviously work through the lows. I think sometimes you can get comfortable when you have some success, and I think sometimes when, things don't quite go the way you want them to go, guys tend to drop their heads. So our veterans understand, we play from, one snap lives, period. Once that snap is over, we start over again. So if they can teach them that skill, I think it'll bode well for most of the freshmen.
With you bring back Warren Burrell, obviously adding to that already the veterans that played this past season at corner, all those newcomers. How much of a sense of urgency is there at that position in particular, because you have so many guys that it looks like they're maybe capable of competing, to sort of identify who you want to focus on going into fall camp?
Yeah, honestly, it's a sense of urgency all over our defense. And I know that sounds cliche, but, that's just how it is. When you continue to recruit at a high level, you like to think the guys that you're bringing in are going to push the guys that are here. Only going to make them better, or obviously give these freshmen an opportunity to play. So is it great having a bunch of guys back on the back end? Absolutely, because competition is, one of the best things going. Everybody wants to be the best, but when you don't have anybody pushing you, sometimes that can be challenging. So it's good. It's good to have this urgency that we have right now with 15 practices, and obviously we think the world of Burrell, as he's gotten healthy. But we obviously got a bunch of guys, too, that are hungry to try to prove what they can do. So, it's healthy. It's healthy for any team, and obviously it's healthy for our back end. Thank you, guys.